Hey guys, in this video we're going to be talking about the idea of solubility. Solubility is very important in this unit as this unit is dealing with aqueous solutions. So we have to understand what makes something soluble in water so we can understand the reactions that are going to occur within water. In this video, at the end of it, you should be able to recall what a solution is and the components of a solution, along with understand the idea of like dissolves like and apply it to ionic compounds, polar covalent compounds, and non-polar covalent compounds. So a solution is a homogeneous mixture composed of a solute and a solvent. So homogeneous mixture. It looks all like one thing. You can't distinguish the components. Has a solute or solutes, and a solvent. So there could be multiple solutes, only one solvent. We say that everything within the mixture is evenly distributed, so the solutes are completely mixed and evenly distributed within the solvent. So they're completely dispersed or evenly distributed. Within the solvent. Okay, so this is the same as the solute is dissolved in the solvent. Okay, and this is going to be clear, not colorless. It does not have to be colorless to be a solution, but it does have to be clear to the eye, so you can't see particulates throughout. Our solute or solutes are going to be the substances, the substance or substances that dissolve. They will be in lesser quantities. And then we have our solvent. This is the substance that dissolves everything. The dissolving substance. And it'll be in the greatest quantity. Okay, and then if we are talking about a solution, this is everything all together. The solute plus the solvent. Okay, so if we have something like salt water, the salt would be the solute, the water would be the solvent, the salt water would be the solution. Tea. Tea, we would have sugar as our solute, water as our solvent, and then the solution itself would be the tea or the sugar water, as it is in the South. When we talk about the idea of solubility, it is the ability of a given substance, a solute, to dissolve within a given solvent. So, the ability for a given substance, our solute, to dissolve in a given solvent. Okay? And when we're talking about solubility, we can talk about something being soluble, partially soluble, very soluble, or insoluble. So solubility can have different magnitudes, if you will. So solutes can be partially soluble, soluble, very soluble, or insoluble, based on certain forces that are in play within the solution itself. Okay, and we will talk more about that in further units. We'll talk about it a little bit now, but if we don't have a like dissolves like, we will not have something that is soluble. So when you're thinking about solubility, like dissolves like. Okay, like substances, things that look similar, are going to dissolve other substances that look similar. So when we're trying to predict solubility, keep that like dissolves like mentality. So similar substances will be soluble within each other. We have a couple of different types of substances we're going to be looking at. We have ionic compounds, polar covalent compounds, and then we have nonpolar molecules. Okay? Ionic compounds, these are going to contain charges. Polar compounds contain partial charges. And nonpolar compounds contain no charges, so just no charges. As a consequence, looking at it from an electrostatic potential energy, our ionic compounds will dissolve in polar compounds. So ionic compounds are usually soluble in polar substances. Okay? And then we still have like dissolves like. Ionic compounds, they're generally going to be solids, so we don't really think about them in terms of solubility. But polar compounds, a lot of those are going to be liquid in nature, which is why the ionic compounds are going to be soluble within the polar compounds. And then polar compounds are usually soluble in polar compounds. So soluble in other polar compounds. And then nonpolar molecules soluble in other nonpolar molecules. Okay. We're thinking about our types of substances. A good example of an ionic compound would be sodium chloride. Good example of a polar compound would be water. So things that contain oxygen are usually polar in nature. And then nonpolar, something like an oil, so a hydrocarbon. Okay, or something like methane. So that'd be an example of a nonpolar substance. So a lot of our organic compounds that we looked at that don't have a heteroatom are going to be considered nonpolar in nature. Okay, that is our solubility talk. I hope you guys understand a little bit more about solubility, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.